One of the things that we teach in foundations is shoulder position, okay? So when we're talking about shoulder position, what we're talking about is how we can stack the shoulder, or how to move the shoulder so that we are in an appropriate position and we're not impinged in any way whatsoever. So in order for me to teach you how, I'll just explain a little bit about how the shoulder girdle works. I'll use Kenny. And you guys probably learned all this in school, but basically we forget all this sort of stuff. Okay, so what we have is a force couplet of muscles, which is made up of the trapezius, which connects up into the neck, down the spine, and into the ridge of the scapula, okay? We have the rhomboid underneath as well, which works in the same direction. The serratus anterior, which is the little muscles that look like fingers that come underneath, you know, when you see bodybuilders and they got little fingers, that's one of the more important muscles because generally it's underused, but that actually runs from the medial border of the scapula underneath the scapula into the ribs, and its job is to pull the scapula into the body and around the body. And then we have the bottom and medial fibers of the traps, okay? So when Kenny goes to put his hand over his head, what happens is those muscles fight in the three directions to spin the scapula around the body, right? So you can bring your hands down. So the scapula moves one part to every two parts that the humerus moves, or the arm, okay? So as this arm is moving up, the scapula needs to be rotating around. And what this does, there is a little socket in the scapula, and the humeral head, which is the arm bone, sits into the socket. Now, when we rotate the scapula around, that little socket is pointed upwards, so the humeral head stacks directly into the socket, right? But if my scapula is super tight and doesn't move very much, my arm goes up, the scapular socket doesn't move, and all the small muscles, the supraspinatus, the tendons, the nerves, they actually get impinged because the scapula is wedged so hard into the body, right? So anytime someone is tight thoracically, or they're tight through their chest, and they go overhead, their scapula doesn't move very much, and all they're doing is forcing their arm up and trapping all the filthy, well, not the filthy, the good stuff, basically, but they're causing filthy damage into that good stuff because it's constantly getting rubbed, and eventually you can get sort of like injuries like some sort of inflammation or bursitis or bone spurs or you name it, right? So what we need to do first of all when talking about sort of freeing up this area is, this is why we do a lot of thoracic work with a double ball. We smash out all this muscle here to allow a little bit more freedom, because if it's tight through here, this scapula isn't going to move. We also concentrate on strengthening the serratus anterior down here so that it pulls the scapula around this way, and we want to focus on strengthening the mid and lower trap fibers, because here is always overly tight, right? So our enemy is going to be the upper trap and the chest, right? Because these two both will pull this shoulder blade up and over, and they'll overpower the mid-lower traps and the serratus anterior, okay? Now, you can teach yourself by thinking about it, how to fire this, which is very difficult to do, but you can actually sort of will it into action. You can sort of feel the serratus anterior is firing, and when you're putting your arm overhead, is my upper trap really hard, or is it a little bit sort of soft and supple so that I know it's not firing up? That's one thing you can do, but then we can apply the knowledge that we've got of how this the shoulder girdle works into doing something like crossover symmetry, okay? And like anything, it's extremely important that you move correctly while doing this exercise. Like any exercise we do, I can give you the right exercise and you can do it wrong, and you can train all the wrong stuff. So it's really important that you think about what you're doing, and especially when your clients are doing this exercise, okay? So let's briefly go through, I'm going to go through the iron scapula routine. So it's pretty easy to do, and it's pretty easy to follow, right? So they recommend you do some mobility through the T-spine, through the levator scap or the upper traps and underneath of the levator scap, through the rhomboids and through the pecs, okay? That's all the standard stuff that you need to loosen up, the stuff that's overused, basically. Now, the first movement we have is the archer. So the way we look at this, when we're doing the iron scapula routine, everything is done at eye level. So we've got eye level here, right? Up here is the heavy band and light band. So if you have a look, you've got recommendations for novice, athletic, and elite. With, depending on your client, I don't even think any of my strongest clients do elite at the moment because they just get crushed by it, basically. So the first movement is the archer. Who wants to do this? Okay, you do this. So we'll just touch on each of these briefly. We won't spend heaps of time in it. So with the archer, what we're trying to do, so we always cross over. Let me grab something a bit lighter. Not that you're not super strong.
I'm not strong. Did you get me?
So with the archer, whenever we're doing anything crossover, you cross over the straps and you take a step back once you're on tension, okay? So this is loose, take a small step back. With the archer, what we're trying to do is we're trying to pull the cable back as if you're trying to draw a bow, and then relax back in, and then doing the opposite one as if you're trying to draw a bow, okay? What we don't want to do is shrug the shoulder up really hard. So everything we do with crossover symmetry, I want you to try and keep that shoulder level, rightio? So we're going to pull, squeeze the shoulder blade back, and relax. Pull, squeeze the shoulder blade back. Give that one a go for me. This one's really going to help to activate the rhomboids. Good. So you do want high elbows. So it's also, so see how as soon as you go really high elbows, you shrug the shoulder up, right? So we want to almost learn how to lift up the shoulder, lift up the elbow without pulling this upper trap up really high. So drop this shoulder down and lift up the elbow. There we go, good. And pull like this, good. And back in. And again. That's better, good. A lot of people you'll find, especially when they're doing just simple things like upright rows in the gym, they shrug so hard and they just get this major upper trap burn because they can't physically lift their arm without using their upper traps, okay? But we're always trying to disengage the upper traps as much as we can because people will always overuse them, right? You're cool with that? This next one, the crossover pull down, is all about lat activation. So whenever I give someone who's new a pull-up program, I always chuck lat activations into the pull-up program because 9 times out of 10 people's lats won't be doing anything. They'll be really dormant. The lat, which runs up the back from the hip, from a fascia that connects to the hip and the lumbar spine, comes in a big flank up around the body and connects into the top of your arm. And that's exactly where the chest connects into, the same spot, the bicipital groove. So if you are doing a back movement and you internally rotate your shoulder, your chest can actually row for you, right? And this is the problem. Everyone gets super dominant through the chest. The lat don't get switched on. They end up being a bicep and chest machine, and this is going to end up in the long run giving you shoulder injuries because you're always internally rotating your shoulder, and whenever you're trying to go overhead, you're going to be so tight through here, you're going to be dragging your shoulder down, okay? So with this one, we also want to make sure that the shoulders are, the upper traps are disengaged, and we set this up so we're in like a deadlift position, and when we do this, we want to make sure we finish by squeezing the rhomboids together. So we set it into that position, sort of like a deadlift position. We pull the straps down until they're beside our body and then squeeze the rhomboids together. What I don't want is you to finish rolling your shoulders forward, which is what most people do. That'll disengage your lat. You have to pull those shoulders back, and you will feel, when you do this, you'll actually feel your lats firing. You need to feel the lats fire, All right? So come give this a go. So leaning forward, yep. So straight arms, you're going to pull those down by your sides. So straight with your arms. So see what happens here, your shoulders internally rotate straight away. So come forward a little bit. Good. Lean forward. Good. Same thing again. So pull those hands down by your sides. Now I want you to pull these shoulder blades back and together. Oh, see, as soon as you, okay, relax for a minute. You're thinking too much about where you're trying to get your hands behind you. I don't want you to think about where your hands are. I want you to think about where your shoulder is, okay? So I don't want you to try and get the hands so far behind you that you end up rolling the shoulder forward. I want you to get your hands by your side and think about peeling that shoulder back, okay? So that you end up in this position, not this position, okay? Try that again. Well, that's better. Straight your wrists, hands a bit lower down. Good, and then squeeze your shoulder. Oh, there it is, all right? And then back down again. Good. Keep the shoulders down, try again. Squeeze the shoulder blades together now. That's it, good. You feel the lats fire when you do that?
I think I'm cramping my lap.
Oh, there you go, right? So feel the difference though. You can go from a chest to the lat in just a small movement, and most of the time people are weaker in the lats if they haven't done much lat work, okay? So do 2 or 3 of those for me. You need to get super strong at this. Squeeze it together here, shoulder blades back, and relax. Good. And again, just looking up for me. That's it. There we go, good.
I feel like a superhero. I feel like I'm flying.
Yeah. Now guess where this applies the most for you guys? Guess.
Pull-ups? No, I don't know.
Well, one thing, but think about this. What happens when people's shoulders are over the bar in a snatch and they have to pull that bar in close to their hip crease? They have to use the lats. Now, if you don't have strength in your lats, you're going to end up internally rotated and your back's not going to be active. It's going to put you in a shit position, okay? So set the shoulders, set the lats, and this will directly help with your Olympic lifting, right? WY negative. So the next one, tiger's walk. This next one here is all about the serratus anterior. So you've seen a tiger's walk, they walk side to side like this, right? You see the shoulder blades lifting up, so that's why they call it that. It just kind of looks like it. But what we do with this one is we cross the things over.
So they're always pretty much
Always crossed over, yep. So now the thing with this one is the serratus anterior and the pec minor both protract the scapula, which means they both press the scapula forward. But what we want to do is I always say to people, try and almost like put your hand as if you're trying to reach underneath something far, right? So because we're trying to depress the shoulder blade and get the serratus anterior to fire, right? So we'll be in this position and we're going to press forward, press this forward, and I want to try and feel this like a pinching almost as if it's firing, okay? I don't want to see this like this big shrug up trying to get this protraction, because this is going to be working the pec minor, but the serratus anterior is going to be a little bit dormant. Okay, so I always get people to try and depress the shoulder and protract, depress, protract, depress, protract, so that they start to get that serratus anterior firing, okay? WY negative, this is now starting to use the shoulder blades in their full capacity. So, the reason why the crossover use this one is because we want to get external rotator strength, or let's use the light one. So developing up the infraspinatus, supraspinatus strength by going external rotation. Also when we're doing this Y, we're going to engage the rhomboid. So from this position we're going to press straight up to lock out and then back down again. But notice, I go to that Y. When I press up, I don't shrug the shoulders. The shoulders stay in the same position. The rotator cuffs, the scapula come around, and I press straight up and back in, okay? Sometimes if people have really bad activation of their rotator cuff or their scapula, and they try to go straight up, they'll end up shrugging because that's the only thing their muscles can do. They're not strong enough to do it the other way. So you have to get them to press slightly out in front in order for them to use the scapula properly, and then over time they'll develop the strength to be able to pin their shoulder blades back down. So if you have to go to this W and then out the front to get it, then that's okay. If you've got the ability to go straight up, without shrugging, then you're good.
We know I'm not going to be able to do it without shrugging.
We don't know that. So we go into the W first.
Just back like
Yep,
that.
just straight back. Good. Squeezing the shoulder blades together. And then we press up. And what we want to look for is, are these upper traps going to raise? That's not too bad, but do you feel this firing? The Serratus Anterior. So straighten out your arms. Arms out in front of you a little bit. Good. And we want to depress that. Oh, there it is. Good. And then down slightly. Good. Go all the way down. Look, let's go do that again. So W. Good. Now press up without shrugging. Oh, see that? How delayed her scapula isn't moving because she's so used to using her upper traps, and back down again. So it's almost like, oh, there it is. Now my scapula is going to work, right? Because, but.
I want to have a shot. I want to see the difference. You feel the difference?
Yeah, because I thought about it, so I sort of relaxed.
Yeah, you're super tight, bro. We could be here for a while. No, just joking. So go back into the W. Good, and then press straight up.
Without.
Yeah, so as you're pressing up, you're depressing. That was good. Go up to here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Good. So with this depress, we want to get into. That's your Serratus firing there now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, now he's got it.
Yeah.
But see how now for you to do this, you have to hyperextend your back. You need to pull that rib cage down, and that's going to show you a true reality of your overhead position, right? But you'll feel this and this firing, right?
Yeah.
So now these are sort of moderately hard.
Okay, I can't really relax then.
Exactly, right? So this is the position. This is a stacked position, but because you're so tight through your chest and you're a big dude, right? So it's
I
a
can definitely feel it. Like that.
yeah. So now if I told you get a barbell that's of a reasonable weight, put it on your back, press it in that position without shrugging the shoulders, with keeping your shoulders. It's not like we're not trying to depress our shoulders. We're not trying to shrug them. Imagine you're just jamming a freaking like screw straight and right in the center of the shoulder blade and allowing it to circularly spin on your back almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why we say we use depression as a cue, but you're not really trying to depress your shoulder. You're just trying to keep it in a neutral position so that it can rotate like it's supposed to, not just get jammed up into one corner.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yep.
So WI negative, done. It's just important that we get that W right. And as we're pressing up, we're trying to get the scapula to rotate outwards. We don't just want to shrug up and be in this position. We want to be in this position. And that, notice that? I'm shrugged here. As soon as I depress, my arms come back into the right position. And I feel a super burn through my Serratus Anterior. Yeah, like depress. I do. I'm not the best with overhead mobility, but I do this a fair bit.
Yeah.
I've developed myself to a point where I'm fairly strong, and it's helped significantly. I've got a tear in my supraspinatus and my infraspinatus, and I wasn't able to do any hanging for a long time. And I constantly did this and heaps of rhomboid, like work through my thoracic spine with like a peanut and weight and all that sort of stuff. And took a couple of months, but now I can do everything. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say I'd stupidly go and do 100 toes to bar one day, 100 chest to bar the next, and muscle ups the next. I probably only hang twice a week. I'm also 105 kilos, so probably ain't going to be too good for me to hang an excessive amount of time for the amount of time I can put into my recovery. But it goes a long way to help with that sort of stuff. Snow Angel, same sort of principle. But with this one, we're doing a full arc, right? So we set the shoulder blades back into that position, and we rotate up and all the way back down again, trying to keep those shoulder blades engaged the whole time. Don't want to shrug up, I want to keep depressed and back down. Who wants to give this a go? Anyone? Do you want to try?
I'll do all of them.
No, you're right, you're right.
No, you can do it, but I'm just probably going to
Have you used crossover before?
Oh, a little bit.
Little bit. Okay, turn your hands. Right, that's it. So we're going, squeezing these shoulder blades together. Oh, all that movement. Then straight up. Don't shrug. So arms up.
Arms up. Okay.
Yep, keep the arms up. So see how now you've just turned on these traps. Now pull, depress. Yeah, that's it. And keep going into this position. Depress. Oh! See that? I know, but do you feel this stuff on here and this stuff like working overtime? Now your traps are starting to come back on, come back down again. Good. So with this one, we want to do multiple, so going up and back, but you ended up, just like everyone does, you're straight like this straight away when we need to be in a neutral position, okay? So it's not that I'm saying don't shrug, I'm just saying, well, I'm saying don't shrug, I'm not saying depress. I'm just saying stay in the same position, try and get those scapula to move around your body. Try not to don't go too far behind you, okay? Because otherwise you're going to make it too tough for yourself. Right, so you can keep it up here, keep the rib cage pinned down, that's the way, and back down again. Good. When you get this right, you'll start to feel all this stuff. If you don't feel it, you're not working it.
Yeah, so true.
Okay, one more time. Oh, there it is. Bit of a delayed reaction there, eh? Everyone's a little delayed. Unless you do this regularly, there's a good chance that your scapula aren't going to work properly. Cool? Snow angel done. Bear hug. The bear hug's the cross between a stretch and like a rhomboid stretch and like a serratus activation, okay? So the bands wrap around your shoulders. And have you guys ever done the rhomboid stretch where you link your fingers together? So you link your fingers together and you stretch your rhomboids out in front of you and you try and pull apart your fingers and you'll feel the rhomboid, try it. Yeah, and you really try and open up through like you're trying to pull your elbows apart as if and keep your fingers linked. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you feel it through your rhomboid?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big dog will feel it over there, that's for sure.
That's crazy.
So, mind equals blowing. So that's what we're trying to achieve with this one, but we're trying to keep the shoulders depressed and we're going to get a pec stretch out of it back here. And as we press, we keep the shoulders down so that we're not shrugging. And we want to open up the rhomboids as much as we can. We're not doing a crossover fly here, okay? We're not trying to get, if you're getting a pumped chest, you're doing this wrong because we're not trying to cross them over like a fly. We're trying to open up the arms and stretch through the rhomboids, okay? And then back again. This one's, some people find this one a bit hard to do, but it's a good one. Kenny, want to give it a go?
Not too high for me, is it?
Nah.
What was if you had little people like this?
So yeah, technically this is supposed to be at eye level, so it's pretty close to Kenny. So make sure these don't slide up over the shoulder. So out the front, down, so make sure these stay a little bit lower. Yeah, that's it, good. And I want you to open this up, so bring it forward, keep going, oh, there it is, good. I don't want you to get an active contraction here, so you're trying to pull your elbows apart as well, as if you're trying to open up through your rhomboids. Got it? Yep. Good. So that's just stretching out, opening the rhomboids, and it's also going to get some serratus anterior activation because we're protracting the shoulder blades as well.
You feel it, hey?
Yeah, you can. Oh, yeah. And the last one is the AT-YT. So this one, yeah, a lot of people struggle with this one. So you know how, like, you would have seen it in bodybuilding. Sometimes they get dumbbells and they do like their incline. They sort of like do like the Y's and their T's and stuff like that. It's a similar sort of principle, but standing up. So the A is like this. This one's supposed to be done quickly until fatigue, okay? Now, if I go down into this position and squeeze my shoulder blades together, I'm in a good position. But if I go down here quickly and let the shoulder blades rotate forward, I'm back in the shit position again. So I am teaching myself to do it wrong, okay? So A, shoulder blades together. T, I always go in till my hands are together and then go back out to T. Right? And then when I go to Y, my hands will come in. I will spin my hands and then come out to the Y. Because otherwise it ends up looking like an ATT. A lot of people will go A-T-T like this, right? I want you to go in and then come back up and out as if you're going for that sort of depressed scapular motion that we did earlier on, okay? So it would be A, T, Y, T, A, T, Y, T. So I'd rather move less of the range in the correct way than the whole range.
You go this way with your...
Yep, so go to your A first, so squeeze the shoulder blades together. That's it, good. Now to your T. And then see, he's a real tight, that's not too bad. T, good. Back down to the A, out to the T, and to the Y to press. Oh, yeah, right at the end, you see that? He just goes, boom, straight up, all right? Good work. So you'll want to just work on this, getting these positions right, trying to get away from that over. We do enough shrugs in Olympic lifting, seriously. We're also upper trap dominant. But if we can incorporate things like this into our training and just, it's more being aware of the fact that the shoulders work in that way, and someone who is superbly tight and that has been training a certain way for a long period of time is going to take them a long time to change. It took me, I would say, close to 2 years to get myself from unaware to functional in being able to row heavy and being able to put a barbell over my head with correctly stacked shoulders. So it took me a long time, right? And that was just consistency in my movement, thinking about what I was doing, applying it, and then reapplying it, basically, and putting the ego away, right? If you can't do something in a correct position, sometimes it's not worth doing it. Sometimes you just start fresh and build up and get stronger and stronger.